Welcome to episode 52 of the Construction Leading Edge podcast. My name is Todd DeWalt, and my job is to help you grow your business, grow your leadership skills, and grow your income. Today's podcast is an interview with Dr. Michael Hatcher. He's the president of Sovereign Construction and Development in Atlanta, Georgia. And we talk about quite a few different topics. We talk about how he started his business, how he actually got started as a general contractor and construction manager, how he got his first contract, some of the lessons he's learned running his own business, and then we dig into the business case for diversity for construction companies. Very, very interesting, very enlightening topic. I guarantee you're going to learn a lot about diversity and not only the importance of following just the letter of the law, but why it's better to go beyond that and really dig into diversity. But before we get into the interview, I did want to let you know that today's podcast episode is brought to you by Audible.com, and I've made a deal where you can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial. Just go to audibletrial.com/edge. There you'll have access to over 180,000 titles to choose from, and you can listen to audiobooks on your iPhone, Android, Kindle, MP3 player, whatever device you've got. And personally, I would recommend one or two books here that I'll share with you. If you go to audibletrial.com/edge, sign up for your free trial and check out The Art of Exceptional Living by Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N, and another book by Jim Rohn called The Power of Ambition. Strongly recommend you listen to both of those. So again, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/edge. Again, that's audibletrial.com/edge for your free audiobook. Now, without further ado, let's get into the interview with Dr. Michael Hatcher. Enjoy. All right, Michael Hatcher from Sovereign Construction. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Todd. How are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you being on the podcast. So tell us a little bit about your business. What kind of work do you do, and where are you located in the world?
Great. Well, first off, thank you so much for having us. We're glad to be with you here today. Sovereign Construction and Development is located in Atlanta, Georgia, and we are construction managers and general contractors. We service clients both in the public and private sector, mostly building owners, commercial real estate folks, property managers. We do a mix of renovation and new construction work. And our most recent project that we completed here in Atlanta was the Auburn Avenue Research Library, which was a 50,000 square foot renovation and addition of a 6,000 square foot auditorium facility.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you give us an idea of how big your company is, either in revenue dollars or employees?
Absolutely. We have 6 full-time employees. We have 2 project managers, 2 site supervisors, admin staff, and myself. And I focus on business development and talent acquisition. Those are my major roles with the company.
Okay. So what's your background? Did you study engineering, construction management, something that traditionally leads into a construction business, or something else?
No. It's funny you asked that. I have a very non-traditional entree into the industry. Was always really entrepreneurial. So I had a number of business enterprises before I came to construction. And what kind of pushed me into construction is, when the boom was going on, I saw the need for a professional services company that would handle kind of project management and also back office execution. So around that time, which was 2007, that's when I started Sovereign Construction, as soon as I started the business, I started in October of '07. As soon as I started the business in about '08, of course, everyone knows the Great Recession came about, and really a lot of the potential targets I had for business and the type of business I wanted to execute, it just wasn't there anymore. And I got an opportunity with an engineering firm that was looking for some project management support, and they were also looking for someone to come in and help them with responses to requests for proposals, RFPs. And at the time, this engineering firm was pursuing an RFP with Fulton County Schools to do some contract administration and some project management. Funny story, I didn't know anything about RFPs, didn't know anything about how that process worked. Walked into the engineering firm first day. The principal at the firm sat down, talked to me. We had a great conversation. He reaches behind him. He pulls out probably about a 4-inch binder. He drops it in front of me, and he said, okay, this is an RFP package. It's due on Friday. Read through it, come up with a response. We'll go over it Thursday afternoon, and we need to submit Friday at 2 o'clock. So that was my, I guess, introduction by fire, not just to construction, but also to the RFP process. We put together a pretty good response. We were fortunate enough to be selected, and that was kind of my start into kind of understanding and working in large-scale commercial construction.
So you mentioned you had several other businesses prior to your getting into the construction business. What other kind of businesses did you have?
Oh, wow, you name it, and I probably had the business. Like I said, I've always been pretty much entrepreneurial. The last time I actually had a job was probably when I was about 20 years old. But from college, late high school, college, and then after college, I had a transport service where we would do couriering and shuttling of college students during the holidays. I had a moving service. I had a security company, a marketing and promotions company, a residential kind of real estate investment renovation company, graphics design. Like I said, you name it, and I probably tried it. I had a salon at one time, a barbershop beauty salon. So I always had an entrepreneurial longing. I knew I wanted to be in business and have a business. And when I kind of found out about construction, it just hit me. That's what I was supposed to be doing. And from there, ever since '07, we've kind of dived into the industry with 2 feet, both from a practitioner standpoint and also from a theoretical standpoint. Once we kind of started and we started working with the engineering firm, I really became interested in just getting more information and education about the industry. So in '08, I went to Georgia Tech and got my master's in building construction integrated facilities management. And probably midway through that first semester, I was just so engrossed with the whole concept and the idea of construction that I decided to kind of continue forward and look to pursue a PhD. And so when I finished with the master's, I went directly into the PhD program and just finished that program last spring of 2016. So my kind of entrance into the industry and also kind of my development and kind of path and process through the industries kind of been, I would say, somewhat non-traditional and a little bit different probably than most people.
I would say. And in my opinion, your your background gives you a unique vantage point that most of the people listening, including myself, don't have. I've been in the construction business for 20 years, studied civil engineering, construction management. It's pretty much primarily everything I've done for the past 20 plus years. So, as somebody you came into the construction industry from outside the construction industry, what struck you as unusual about the construction industry when you first got involved with it? What were some of the things that you just scratched your head and said, I can't believe they do blank?
Well, I think what kind of struck me initially was just how broad and diverse construction was as an industry, and also just how little people actually knew about what we do in the industry. I would have conversations with colleagues or people, family, friends, and when I would tell them I was in the construction company or that I had started a general contracting firm, the conversation would always go to residential home construction. Oh, you flip houses, or oh, you renovate kitchens and baths. And I would say, no, not necessarily. We kind of work more in the construction on the commercial side. And it was amazing to me how many people just didn't really correlate, commercial construction with everything they saw in front of them on a daily basis. The apartments, the highways, the roads, the bridges, the skyscrapers, the supermarkets, the retail establishments, the healthcare facilities. It seemed like it just didn't correlate that all of these things that people used on a daily basis were the result of construction activity. And then when I got into school, one of the things that really, really just stood out to me, and it's one of the things that kind of pushed me into really, really wanting to complete the PhD, is, I would run my company during the day and I would go to school at night. And I would take what I learned from school and directly apply it the next day when I got into the office. And one of the things that I thought was really, really interesting was how big the gap was between theoretical application or thought and actual real practical application. I would learn things at school that from a theoretical standpoint, they sound really, really good. But the practical application of that theory was completely opposite of what we were being taught in school.
Can you give us what's an example?
Oh, yeah. One of the examples I always refer to, I remember I had a colleague who was working on robotic site layout. And, he had all of these algorithms and formulas and theories for how he'd be able to create kind of this robotic laydown area for a construction site. And in theory, it sounded, completely brilliant. But the practical application of that would have been very, very difficult to execute just because of all the other additional factors that go into a construction laydown site, that because he didn't have experience in the industry, he didn't necessarily know how to fold into his model. The construction process is a very dynamic process. It's not static, right? And so a construction laydown site changes by the day, by the hour, by the minute, based on what's coming into the site, how tight the site is, what needs to be stored, what certain subs are using, how much production is being utilized, where certain equipment needs to be mobilized on the site, and how that changes. That changes on a daily basis dependent upon the flow of construction activity. And so something that seemed to make perfect sense in a very sterile laboratory environment wouldn't have the same level of impact on an actual, real, functioning construction site. And so just little small things like that made me say, hey, we have to do a better job of setting up our education and our training for our workforce of the future to be better equipped to handle the true practical application of construction service delivery.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, where that came from.
Gotcha. So let's talk about when you started your business. There's a lot of folks listening to this podcast who are in the throes of starting their own business, or they're ramping up, trying to make that leap from working for another firm to starting their own firm. So a couple of questions. If you can give some real practical advice, what did you do to get your first project as a general contractor?
Well, like we spoke about before, by taking that kind of contract project management position, I learned about the RFP process. So, we really, really got into the different public procurement channels, and really started to try to find RFPs that suited our skill set and also our size. And so we really tried to hone in on those opportunities. And when I look at our first contract, I always look at it in two phases. Our first contract was with the City of Atlanta, doing construction management for their Bureau of Housing Department. And I remember when we first looked at the RFP, one of the things I thought about was, wow, is this something that's really going to lead to a really nice bandwidth or a good amount of work? Because the way the RFP was kind of structured, it didn't really give you an idea of how much work you'd be managing, either from a dollar amount or from a project size. But one thing I did know is I knew we needed to get some experience, and I knew we needed to actually have a client to be able to get to the next client. Mm-hmm. So we got that first contract, and it was a very small contract, but it allowed us to be able to put something on our resume. Very shortly after that, after we were awarded our first contract, an RFP opportunity came up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it was for a CM at risk delivery. And so we partnered with a general contractor from the metropolitan Atlanta area, and the skill set that we were able to bring to the table was the construction management piece. And we kind of melded our skill sets together, them being a mid-sized general contractor that had a large deal of experience with the type of work that we were chasing in North Carolina. And then our experience as kind of being an owner's representative. We meshed those two together. We went to Charlotte, and we were successful in being awarded an $11 million project in the midst of the recession. So it kept both of our firms going, and it allowed us to grow during a very, very difficult economic time. So I say that because if it wasn't for the small contract, we would have never had the opportunity to even be in play for the larger contract, nor would we have had any value to bring to the table or any experience for our resume. So a lot of times when you start out a business, and especially in this business because it's relationship driven, you think, oh, well, I have to have a $1 million project or a $5 million project for it to really matter and make sense. And that's not the case at all. It's not about the size of the contract. It's about the value that it's going to bring to your firm, and it's about the experience that you're going to be able to kind of garner and bring from a company intel standpoint. And then, also being able to service the client, right? Being able to take on clients where you know that you'll be able to do good work for them. We're firm believers that, our next contract is going to take care of itself as long as we do what we're supposed to do on all of our current contracts. And I think a lot of times, not even just in this industry, but in business, a lot of times we get so caught up on looking down the road that we miss and don't take care of the opportunities that are right in front of us and are already right in our hands.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's like the new business is, well, existing clients that you have a relationship with, that's low-hanging fruit. You already have a contract, they know you know them, you've gotten a lot of the variables out of the way. Why not try to deepen that relationship as opposed to trying to go after new business where you don't know each other, you don't know how they pay, you don't know if they pay, you don't know how risky they are. But it seems like it's like I've said in the past, the new client, the new prospect, they're like that pretty girl in high school that everybody's excited about, and everybody's chasing after them. But you don't know anything about her. She may not be all that great once you get to know her. So let me put it this way. Let's say I said, Michael, I want to start a general contracting firm here in my area. A couple of questions. What kind of clients, if I start looking for clients I want to work with? Well, first of all, let me ask it you this way. Would you advise me to focus on looking at projects or looking at relationships?
That's a great question, right? And it's kind of one of those things, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? And so the way we have done it, and try to really focus on doing it in continuum, is we really try to stay committed to our core values, and then basically expanding out from there in regards to who we want to do work for and the type of work that we want to do for that particular client. So what I mean by that is, we have core values: integrity, service, quality, communication, sustainability, team, innovation, right? That's what we believe as an organization. So when we go out and we look for clients we want to service, we try to make sure that the values that they exude as an organization or as a person line up with our values. That's the first thing. Because
why is that important? Because some people would say, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I gotta get work in the door. Why is that important in the long term to find clients that have core values that line up with yours?
Well, work in the door doesn't always correlate to checks in the bank, right? And so, especially in today's economy, there's work out there all over the place. I mean, you can get yourself into work, right? That's never the hardest part as a general contractor. What's always the hardest part for us is making sure we get out of the work, right? Making sure we get out of the work unscathed, making sure we get out of the work profitable, make sure we're not paying to do the work. And so, if you just go out and chase clients and you just go out and chase contracts, right, you're going to end up aligning with people that you don't agree with. You don't agree with, I'm not talking about their opinions on politics or, sports teams. I'm talking about just the fundamental way they move through life and the way they do business. And so when you are diametrically juxtaposed in that manner, right, where, you're on one side of the equation and they're on the other side of the equation, that's not a relationship that lends itself to success, right? If you're a person of integrity and you do business for a person that doesn't have that same level of integrity, well, guess what? If they have problems or a lack of desire to pay their other vendors or to pay their other partners, it's only going to be a matter of time before they don't pay you, right? If they have very poor communication, or every time you hear them speak about someone, they're speaking about somebody negatively or just speaking about things in a negative tone or a negative manner, well, guess what? It's only a matter of time before they start speaking about you or your firm in that way. And so, I'm saying this because we have had scenarios and situations where saying, hey, we need to get a project in the door, or we need to find some work. And you go and you chase work or you land work that doesn't necessarily fit what your value proposition is and what your business model is. And next thing you know, you've got the tail by the tiger, or the tiger by the tail, and you don't know what to do with it, right? And so it's very, very difficult to do. I mean, it's one of the things that we struggle with. We struggle with on a daily, weekly basis, because you're always looking at your P&L, you're always looking at your balance sheet, you're always looking at your working capital and your bonding capacity, and all of these things are a function of revenue and a function of growth. But what we've chosen to do as an organization is say, you know what, let's not run the business based on other people's expectations. Let's run the business based on our expectations and how we want to interface with the marketplace instead of how the marketplace wants to interface with us. That's what I think is the most important thing, you know, for someone kind of starting in this industry, is really having a really, really good understanding of who they are, right, and the type of work that they want to do and who they want to do that work for.
And then let's say they've gone through that exercise, what are some of the characteristics of a good client, assuming that they have good core values? What are some characteristics that you would advise people to go look for in the way of a good client? In other words, would you advise them to look for someone who does large projects once every 5 years, or they have a steady flow of $100,000 projects? What are some characteristics that you look for outside of core values when you're trying to land new clients?
Well, we try to look at our approach to the market in a couple of different verticals. You know, we want to have clients that are doing, you know, I wouldn't say a large volume of projects, but they're doing maybe a lot of smaller projects. And so that's where our kind of construction management vertical comes in, because a lot of those clients are doing multiple projects and they just don't have the construction expertise in-house to do the work. So they'll bring us in. But, you know, you also want to have large projects and get large project experience. The funny thing about our industry is every day, you know, we're working ourselves out of a job, right? So you always have to be looking for clients that are going to remain and stay in the business. But I think at the same time, you know, you have to also look for pieces of business or lines of business that are going to be able to give you smaller project, maybe larger volume, especially as a smaller company, so that you can kind of maintain cash flow and also be able to grow experience on projects that you know you can handle, you can execute, and you can turn over in a quality manner for your clients.
Good advice. So let's do this. You mentioned construction management versus general contracting, and those may have different definitions based on different industries or different parts of the country. So can you clarify or define what you mean by construction management versus general contracting?
Absolutely. You know, when we do construction management, you know, we're usually going in and we're helping the owner to execute their construction program. In that scenario, we're the owner's representative. We're usually helping the owner develop scope, develop budget, schedule, vet contractors, you know, bid solicitation, contractor selection, and then just management of the selected contractor throughout the course of the project, in line with the execution of the work and also the kind of warranty and closeout requirements. On the general contracting side, that is actually us as a firm going out and executing, managing, coordinating, the work ourselves, with our risk being for the schedule, the budget, the quality, and performance. Um, so, general contracting is just that. It's the delivery of construction in the more traditional format. And construction management is, like I said, more of an owner's rep type of delivery where you're actually managing the overall construction process.
Gotcha. And for the guys and gals listening who want to start a business, which avenue would you advise them to go down, or is there one that's preferable to the other for starting out?
Well, I think the first thing you want to do is you want to look at where your strengths lie. If you have a good technical background or a background that lends itself to general contracting, you of course want to go down that avenue as far as your strength. We kind of added construction management on the general contracting is because that was the world we were familiar with. That's where we had kind of our initial entree into the business. So that was just kind of a natural leaning for us. But what I would say is, wherever your core competency is, if you are a superintendent of a company and you're looking to start your own construction firm, then yeah, I would say general contracting would be your most, initial, probably the best leaning. If you're more on the administrative or office side, and you work closer in integrated delivery methodologies, if you do design build, if you do see them at risk, if you're already kind of doing construction management agency where you're at, well, you might have more of a natural leaning or proclivity to be, a construction manager. For us, because of our background, they kind of both just intertwined. But I think if that's not how it works, then you probably want to select which one you feel more comfortable with and which one you can bring the most value, manifest the most value for your clients, and, select that and really, really kind of develop that competency and skill set, and then maybe look to diversify.
I think that's great advice, because the sense I get from some people is that they think there's only one way to get into the construction business, and that is to start a GC firm where you have to land a big project and you have to just make the leap, hope for the best, and put it all on the line. But if you're hearing this, it sounds like there's another alternative to that. If you're more on the project management, project executive side, used to dealing with owners and architects, you could probably add more value and be more comfortable and be able to be more successful going the construction management route. So I appreciate you sharing that, Michael. That's really good stuff. A couple of questions for you about starting the business. Then I want to talk about diversity and workforce development, because those are big topics that everybody needs to hear about. But when you started, you're a serial entrepreneur. And you've been in a lot of businesses, you probably crossed paths with a lot of successful entrepreneurs and a lot of maybe not so successful entrepreneurs. What are some of the key mindset issues that people need to deal with or be aware of if they're going to start their own business?
Well, I think one of the things that we just touched on is, your personal value proposition is going to be extremely important. And just understanding that when you start your business, right, it's going to be at times very challenging to stay committed to that core value proposition when you're developing and building everything from scratch, right? A lot of the things that are going to come about or be developed in the business, they're going to come about and be developed with the steam of, the entrepreneur that starts the business. So it's kind of staying focused and grounded in that. And then, really, really working on a daily basis to really understand the business and really try to focus on what the business needs now and in the future. And that can be very, very difficult because you're trying to see down a road that you don't necessarily know about, right? You're driving, and it's almost equivalent to like driving in the dark with your headlights on, right? You know, the headlights can only see so far down the road, right? But you know your trip is, say, 1,000 miles, right? But you can only see 50 feet in front of you, right? So you have to move at that pace of 50 feet in front of you and stay focused on what's right in front of you, but still focus on the vision and the bigger picture. And that's probably what's I would think would be one of the most difficult things. You know, that's one of the things that has kind of been challenging just from my development and as I have kind of built and developed the business. You know, trying to make decisions for today that you feel will also make sense tomorrow, the next day, next week, and next month.
Yeah, and that's tough because like you said, you can't see what's beyond the headlights, and you've got this fixed amount of information that you can make decisions based on, and the decisions you make are going to impact what comes down the road, and you don't know what's out there. So yeah, that's a balancing act. Here's something that I've struggled with in the past, and maybe you can, I'm sure some other folks listening have as well, and maybe you can provide some advice. So one of the things I struggled with when I had my own business, and then even since then but specifically when I had my own business, when I would go after work and I was doing good work and I was trying to land a new client and I bid on a project and I didn't get it. They picked somebody else. And, you know, that's going to happen the majority of the time, unfortunately. You know, maybe for some people they land more than they lose. But one of the things I struggled with was it got discouraging, and it almost felt I had to work with myself to not take that personally. Like sometimes it felt like they were rejecting me and my company and not just my price. So what advice would you give to somebody who's dealing with that discouragement and feeling rejected and just because they're not getting, they don't feel like they're making any progress?
Got you. Yeah, you know, I'm a big sports guy. You know, I love sports. And I think in this business, you have to have a mindset like a Division I or NFL cornerback. You know, you're a man or woman on an island, and really all you can focus on is the next play, right? So, you know, you see these guys and they play on Sunday, and I mean, you know, they're really, really gifted at what they do. And every now and then, you know, a receiver will score a big play on them. And the really good guys have the ability to kind of just shake that off and just go right back with the next play. I think a lot of times in this industry, that's how we have to kind of approach our being awarded, or even worse, not being awarded work. It doesn't have to be viewed as, I guess, an indictment of you. It should never be viewed as an indictment of you personally. You know, in this business, you definitely have to have a very, very thick skin, because it's not always the most, I guess, soft skill type business. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think one thing that goes unknown about our business is that it takes a lot of time, effort, and energy to put a bid or cost proposal together. And a lot of times what our clients don't realize is there's an emotional attachment to that time, effort, and energy, right? Because you're putting that bid together because you want to win, right? You want to win that work. And you really, really put a lot of effort into trying to win that work. But not winning that work a lot of times doesn't have anything to do with you. In cases, even when it may seem to be the most transparent of procurement activities, there still can be underlying issues or reasons why, you don't get selected or awarded the project. And I think that's why it's even more important, like we talked about just a couple of minutes ago, to really, really focus on going after clients that have a similar value proposition as you. Because then if you're chasing those type of clients, when you don't get the work, you can circle back around and say, hey, we felt really good about this bid. What was it that we didn't have? Or what was it that we can do better in the future? One of the main things I get from a lot of my colleagues and also subcontractors that we need to do better as an industry is just kind of giving the people who give us bids feedback on why they did or didn't get the work. And so if you're just bidding to someone and they don't know you, they don't care about you or your business, you giving them a number, it really doesn't mean anything, right? Because there's nothing else there outside of the number. So if your number or your bid didn't meet their expectations, there's nothing for you to grow from. You don't get anything from the exercise. What you want to get from the exercise at a minimum is just some feedback on what you did right, what you did wrong, and what you can do better. And so I think if you're chasing the right type of clients, the clients that kind of fit your culture, then you'll have a better opportunity to win some work from those type of people, because they'll actually give you a chance to get better. They'll actually give you something to say, okay, this is what we need to do. Maybe we were a little high on our overhead. Maybe, we had some items and general conditions that don't necessarily apply to this client. Maybe our fee is a little too high. Maybe we have the wrong type of subcontractors that are looking to do this type of work for us. So I think one of the things that can kind of help, move through that process is, just trying to find people to do work for that will help you in your procurement and your, job chase efforts.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, because if you look at the life cycle of a proposal, most contractors will spend 20, 40, 60, 80 hours to get to the point where the proposal goes in, they find out they're not selected, and they don't close the loop. And if they would just spend a little bit of time, maybe another hour or two, trying to get that feedback like you shared, then they can take that information, roll it back into their process, make adjustments, and get better. But for some reason, we're afraid to go ask those questions, or we think, it's not important, it doesn't matter now, why spend any time on it? But, I've been an owner's rep, and I can tell you when a contractor comes back to me and says, hey, what do we have to do to earn your business? We really want to work with you. Can you give us some feedback? That tells me those folks, they're serious. They want to take care of me. And one thing that when I'm on the contractor side and I didn't get work, or whenever I'm dealing with some issue, one of the things that helped me, one of the things that helped me was to realize that when I'm frustrated and discouraged, I'm thinking about one person, and that's me. But if I'm really concerned about my clients, and I'm really concerned about my subcontractors, and I'm really concerned about my employees, then I'm going to forget about the things that I'm frustrated about, and I'm going to move on, and I'm going to do what's best for everybody else instead of feeling sorry for myself. So let's shift gears, and I want to talk about finding talent, keeping talent, workforce development. because this is a huge problem. I've talked to dozens of business owners, dozens of industry experts, and across the board, when I ask the question, what's the biggest problem we face as an industry, almost to a person, they say workforce development. We just don't have the people. We're not going to be able to keep up. It's a big threat. So let's talk about diversity as a workforce development strategy, because there's a lot of talk about getting into schools and talking to high schoolers and even elementary schools and trade schools and poaching talent from other industries. But talk to us about what have you found out? What have you learned when it comes to using diversity, increased diversity strategies to develop your workforce?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's no secret. One of the biggest problems plaguing the construction industry is a lack of qualified workers that are capable of meeting the current market demand, and that's not just at the labor level, but that's management, supervision. That's at every level of the industry. And I think what we have to do as an industry, we have to take more of a long-term commitment as an industry on becoming more diverse. And the reason for that, it's simply demographics. Currently our industry is it's very homogenous. It's starting to age at an accelerated rate. The statistics say that by 2045, minorities will constitute 46% of the population. And population growth between 2000 and 2045, 86% of that total population growth will be minority. So for no other reason than purely demographics, as an industry, we have to start looking at workforce development, talent acquisition. We have to start looking at that through a different lens. U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, they had a report out. It was labor force characteristics by race and ethnicity. And one interesting finding of that report was that white males make up 81% of all people employed in this country. They make up 92% of the construction managers and 91% of the carpenters. Right? That's current. But now if you look at the future, right? The future of our industry says 17% of all Hispanics or our industry makeup, 17% of all Hispanics are likely to work in construction. 12% white, 6% black, and 4% Asian. So as our current population starts to gray, right, and our newer population starts to brown, we're going to have a completely different demographic. And if we're not diligent about being diverse now, before we look up, it'll be too late. And we won't have the opportunities to make the outreach and inroads to this new developing population or these new developing population groups and say, the construction industry is the route you need to go. If we don't start looking to reach people at a younger age and also diverse groups, then it really, really puts us in a bad position in our ability to attract future talent. And so, unless we make a serious commitment to diversity, we stand to lose market share in being able to recruit intelligent, competent, and qualified talent into our industry. And most importantly, if we fail to expand the tent, right, that takes away from our most viable weapon in solving the industry-wide labor management and supervision workforce shortage, right? Because we just won't have access to the people.
Yeah, because what what's not so apparent is that we as an industry are competing against all the other industries out there. Manufacturing,
Absolutely.
food service, hospitality, all of these other industries who are faced with the same problem. They need qualified people, they need smart people, they need people that will show up for work, people that will help them grow their organizations. There are entrepreneurs in all industries who want to grow their business. And if they can steal smart, capable people out of the construction industry to grow their business, they're going to do it. And if they can get to those people, and we're not, then there's going to be effectively a blight on our industry, and we're not going to be able to do what needs to be done. And not only is it going to affect our industry, but it's going to affect our country because our infrastructure is already a mess as it is, water and sewer and highways, and it's only going to get worse if we can't get the right people. So there are some macro issues, some global type industry-wide issues that we need to deal with. But if we bring it down to the local small business or medium business owner level, what are some things that they need to be doing right now to mitigate this issue, or to what do they? Let's start with this. How do they need to think differently? And I'll throw out an example because I think one of the common perceptions of diversity is, there are MBE, WBE requirements on contracts, and it's sort of like this. Well, we have to find an MBE. When people think about diversity, they think, well, that means we have to find MBE subs or an MBE joint venture partner to do this project with, so we get our percentage of the required spend. And that is a need, but it's a lot bigger than that, isn't it? How else should people be thinking about diversity in their own business?
The example you just posed is the one that most people think of, right? And that's very antiquated, right? Today, diversity is more than just about race or ethnicity. Diversity is gender. It's service disabled veterans. It's age from a millennial standpoint. It's LGBT from a sexual orientation standpoint. All of these different categories now encompass diversity, right? And so when we look at diversity, and just as an industry and as a business, from the business case, when we think about diversity, we have to start looking at diversity from the standpoint of market, right? If the demographics of our population are changing, right? The demographics of our building owners, our developers, our construction real estate guys, all the people that we procure work from, they will start to look like the demographics that we're talking about, right? So from a market penetration standpoint, if you just looked at it purely from that standpoint, you're going to want people in your firm, right, that can understand the market and also are reflective and can relate to the market, right? The other thing is that when you get diverse people involved in your organization, you get different innovations and different perspectives because you're getting insight from different places. If you looked at it just from a corporate social responsibility standpoint, right? When you're engaged in diversity, you're reinforcing values and principles that complement your existing organizational goals. So, when you say, hey, we're a sustainable organization, or, we're an innovative organization, just from that corporate social responsibility standpoint, diversity, it reflects that and also helps you leverage all of the benefits that are brought about by having diverse population groups as part of your organization. The other thing is that it opens up, your talent supply chain, because it gives you access to different people. And then if you're looking at it from, say, like a subcontractor standpoint, right, by using diverse subcontractors and diverse population groups, you're really opening up the market and bringing more people in to create more competition, which should lead to better pricing, right? Because you're giving more opportunity to people to actually compete and be a part of the supply chain. So I think, when we're looking at diversity, I think when we look at it from the standpoint of, oh, okay, we need to get with a minority subcontractor so we can fulfill this requirement. I mean, that is the it's a very short-sighted view, and it's a very antiquated view, because that's just not what diversity means anymore. you know. And when we look at diversity, diversity done that way is just, it's just diversity for diversity's sake, right? You're not really trying to implement or execute initiatives because that's your natural or true leaning, right? You're just doing that because of some policy mandate or procurement rule. And that's not how you're going to be able to set yourself apart from the competition, or get more diverse people to want to work with you or your firm. That's not going to get it done.
So, what are some practical things that you would recommend people do? Some actions you would recommend business owners take right now? Because it sounds like the traditional approach to diversity of being reactive and only sourcing diversity and diverse contractors when there's an RFP, that's just checking the box, following the letter of the law, but not only not following the spirit of not the law, but the spirit of what's behind that. But also, by only doing that, we're missing out on a lot of the opportunities that are available. So in my opinion, there has to be a mindset shift about diversity. It's no longer some obligation that they've got these diversity spending requirements, we're going to have to go do this. The mindset has to shift to, we need to be a diverse organization, whether our clients require it or not, because, one, it's the right thing to do. Two, our client base is becoming more diverse. Three, we have a workforce problem, and this is a solution. So diversity is a solution to some of the problems that businesses are facing. It's not a problem that has to be solved. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you're actually going in the right direction with your thought process, right? So what people need to understand is, what diversity really means in the active sense, right? Not just, to your point, to check the box and think that, oh, okay, that's diversity. A lot of times when people talk about diversity, they look at diversity as the differentiation between the groups, and it's usually talked about in a manner of, say, diversity and inclusion, where inclusion is kind of focusing on the needs of every individual and ensuring that the right conditions are in place for those people to be able to be successful, right? So diversity is kind of the mix of people, right? And inclusion is kind of getting that mix to work well. And that's one part of it, right? But when we're looking at, okay, as an organization, we need to be more diverse, or we need to develop a diverse workforce, right? It has to be more than just saying, okay, let's mix some people up and make sure they work well together, right? What it has to be is that you have to be more deliberate. As an industry, we have to be more deliberate about simply and purely hiring more diverse people at every level of the organization, right? Not just at the laborer level or, at the foreman level. And those are very important levels. I mean, we need all hands on deck in relation to our workforce development strategies. But we have to start bringing in different genders, different diverse population groups, people of different sexual orientations, service disabled veterans. We have to start bringing those people in and plugging them in at the supervision level, the project management level, the senior management level, you know, um, administration, accounting, um, safety at every level. The beauty about our industry, and kind of going back to what we were talking about from an entrepreneurial standpoint, there are so many different avenues for you to get your foot in the door in this industry. And it's no different from an employment standpoint, right? There are a number of areas where people are needed. And so we have to start meeting those needs, with people from diverse population groups. That's the first thing, right? Because then, you can kind of create an environment where you're actively encouraging and pushing diversity. We also have to reach out and expose our industry to more diverse population groups. It can't just be a one-sided deal where we're just kind of standing here and saying, okay, hey, diverse people, come over here. We've actually got to get out and find and learn about diverse population groups, and then also teach them about our industry and how there's a place for them in our industry, and also all of the good things that we're doing in the industry. I mean, every day our industry gets more sophisticated. Your technical competency goes up on a daily basis. The skill and ability to think that you need to be in the construction industry, it's on par with any other industry. So we have the ability to show people that this is a really developing, challenging, sophisticated industry. And then we have to do a better job of partnering and working with diverse businesses and diverse service providers, because we're not going to get all of our diversity or workforce development organically, right, by way of participants coming in through one particular firm, right? When we partner and work with diverse population group service providers, well, what we're doing is we're helping to grow and establish those businesses, and those businesses are going to be more likely to hire diverse population groups themselves, right? So if we're working with an Hispanic service provider, a woman service provider, a lesbian service provider, those service providers are more likely to hire people just like themselves, which in turn helps to grow that diverse population group pool within our industry. So it's got to kind of be, a multi-layered approach, but a multi-layered approach that is based more in a shared value connection instead of just a transactional, okay, we need 10% of all the subcontractors on this job to be minority. That's just not, going to move us forward as an industry to say, hey, we're looking to be more diverse and we're looking to include diverse population groups in our future growth trajectory.
Yeah, and for the folks who are only concerned about the bottom line, I would tell you that what you need to be aware of is that project owners, the developers and private businesses and corporations that you're trying to land business with, they're becoming more diverse, and that antiquated approach of just checking the box or having a flat percentage of minority spending, those days are probably numbered. And I would say there are clients out there already who they don't just want a certain dollar spend. They want to look at your organization. They want to see that you're not just checking the box, that you are in fact a diverse organization. So your lack of diversity will cost you opportunities, and it's something you need to do to get on the front of, instead of being caught behind the eight ball when it's when you are faced with this opportunity you really want, but you don't meet the requirements, you're not truly a diverse organization, and at that point, it's going to be too late. So, well, Michael, we are running out of time here. This has been some great information, some mindset changes that need to happen. I really appreciate you sharing your experience as an entrepreneur and as someone coming in from the outside of the construction industry. It's extremely helpful. Where can people find out more about you, your business, connect with you, whether it's a website, social media? If people want to stay connected with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Oh, absolutely. We are online at www.sovereign, SOVEREIGN, built.com. That's our website, and people can also get us on Twitter or Instagram at Sovereign Built. And then, if people want to connect with me via Twitter or Instagram, they can get me at Dr. Big Mike, PhD. And, we're pretty active on the social scene. So, if you've got ideas, thoughts, or just want to connect, those would be two good places where you can reach us via the company or, via myself personally.
That sounds great. Well, I'll make sure and put the links that you mentioned in the show notes for this call. So if you're listening and you want to get in touch with Dr. Big Mike, PhD, then you'll be able to do that. And so, Michael, thank you so much. This has been great. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview. You got something out of that. I hope you have a better understanding of the business case for diversity, as well as gathering some leadership lessons and business lessons from somebody who's been there and done that. So if you have any questions, hey, let me hear from you. Send me an email, todd@constructionleadingedge.com. As always, head over to the website, constructionleadingedge.com. There'll be a blog post for this podcast at constructionleadingedge.com /052. Until next time.